everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Genderly Show. My name is Eden Hare. This is a special day for a number of different reasons, as we'll talk about during this podcast episode. Most notably, today is International Women's Day, which is celebrated on March 8th every year. It's a international day where women and gender diverse individuals can celebrate. Now, International Women's Day has been around for over 100 years, and it's not unique to any given country. So that makes it a even more celebratory day. But as we're going to talk about a little bit later in this podcast episode, you'll hear that it's actually a very important and very personal day for me specifically. But today's episode is actually not specifically dealing with International Women's Day. It's actually about acceptance. Acceptance, we hear it and we use it in daily life. Well, I accept the situation. Yes, I accept your apology. I accept this $15 for whatever it is that I just bought from you, right? We use the word in a lot of different ways. And, we accept your friendship, we accept your proposal, etc. So it sounds like something that's relatively easy to do, but sometimes it can be terribly difficult because acceptance is not always an external thing. We're not always accepting something from others. We're not always accepting another person. We have to deal with the intrinsic acceptance of ourselves. So, if you have listened to any of my previous episodes, then you know that I sometimes like to start out with a definition, just to help set things up from a discussion perspective, right? So let's talk about what acceptance is according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Acceptance is the quality or state of being accepted or acceptable, such as her theories have gained widespread acceptance. Or it's the act of accepting something or someone, the fact of being accepted, approval, the acceptance of responsibility. Now, there are all kinds of other definitions, right? Definitions in terms of law, etc. So those didn't really, they define acceptance, they don't really tell us an awful lot. The definition of accept is to give admittance or approval, to accept her as one of the group, to endure a situation without protest or reaction. So as, we accept the weather, such as it is. To regard as proper, normal, or inevitable, an idea that is widely accepted, for example. The one that I really like is to recognize as true. So when I think about acceptance and accepting, and in the case of this podcast episode, where I'm actually thinking about the acceptance of self, the definition that I really gravitate to is the state of being recognized as true, as proper, as normal. When you think about it, all of us, people, humans, we want to be accepted by others. We want someone else to approve of us. We want to be admitted or accepted into a group. We want to be seen as normal, true. And that is before we introduce anything which others might consider as different. Anyone at all struggling with any aspect of their personality or their identity, we all want to be accepted for our individuality. And many people experience problems being accepted or feeling accepted. And many of us often have problems looking for or even asking that we be accepted by others because we may be at odds with ourselves. What I'm trying to say here is when we don't accept some part of us, a notion, concept, truth, that we are different from others in some way, we create a bigger divide, a bigger challenge to acceptance. And that's without anyone helping us be rejected. Now, it sounds a little bit weird, and we're going to dive into it a little bit more, but we don't know if others will accept or reject us. We live in fear of being rejected. We live in fear of what will being rejected mean to us. Except, what if it's not someone else doing the rejecting? What if it's us? What if we are busy rejecting ourselves? In the context of acceptance, of being recognized as valid, as worthy, as valuable, this is as much an intrinsic as extrinsic thing. If we don't see ourselves as worthy, valuable, true, how can we believe it when someone else says it to us? Now, to illustrate what I'm trying to tell you, I need to tell you a little bit more of my story and why it relates to today, International Women's Day. As I've said in some previous episodes, I knew I was different, but I had no language. In a lot of ways, I struggled with acceptance. Mostly, I had a hard time being accepted by others. Not because they didn't accept me. I didn't understand why they accepted me. But the point being is that it took a long time for me to realize that I had a problem with being accepted by others. Because I was struggling with accepting myself. I based my value on what I did for others, what I accomplished in my job, what I accomplished in my career, the books and accolades that I earned. And I also learned that I hated being in the limelight when those accolades were granted. So you can see there's a little bit of a conundrum here, right? You want the acceptance, you want the praise, but at the same time you don't want it because now you're in front of everybody. The problem here is the concept of self-worth. If I could do something which was of value to someone else, I had no value. I had no self-worth. I wasn't just not accepting me. I was actively rejecting me. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't talented enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't, and insert any other requirement, enough. I did this my whole life. No one knew. I never told anybody. I never let anyone know what was going on. I don't think I actually ever came out and said to someone, "Why do you like me?" But I sure wanted to know. Eventually, I realized that there was an issue with gender. I was more comfortable initially wearing women's clothes. So I started experimenting. And when things went bad, I rejected myself again. Instead of accepting what I knew was true, I said, no, this is not. And I kept that up for another 22 years. Oh, I was successful. I had a good job, continued to publish and write books and magazine articles, and otherwise be respected in my job and my, career. But as for everything else about me, it was complete and utter silence. I just rejected it all, buried it. Many transgender people, when we look in the mirror, we see someone else staring back at us, or we don't accept that the person in the mirror is actually us. I mean, I could look at a picture and know that it was me, but not feel connected to the image or any of the emotion that may have existed around the context of the picture. And sometimes I could. The point is, I was actively rejecting the concept of me until I reached a point where I realized I had to do something. I had to figure out how to move forward. And I had to get help to deal with the voice that was screaming in my head, I'm a woman, every day. And even then, I still said no. That is until today, March 8th, International Women's Day in 2022. I had just gotten out of the shower and I was standing topless in front of the mirror in my bathroom and making a completely negative comment about my inadequate breasts when I looked at the face in the mirror. I saw a feminine face. I saw a woman looking back at me. And I quietly said to her, I accept you as the woman that you are. You're smart, funny, capable, compassionate, loving, strong, and able to handle anything the world can throw at you. I love you. I am proud of you. You know, I stood there for a little while in front of the mirror, and before long, I felt different. I felt a weight off my shoulders. I could feel the glimmer of hope, the warmth of happiness, and the silence of peace. My world was quiet. All of the tumblers in the lock aligned, and someone new emerged. I accepted me. At age 59, I finally understood what it meant and how it felt to love myself, to be aware of myself, to be proud of who I am as an individual, as a woman, to feel peace and to be at peace with myself, my universe, and my soul. So I spent some time dwelling on this and living this new awareness, this new degree of acceptance, this new feeling, and time in therapy discussing it, just like many other people have. And at the same time becoming concerned about others accepting me, looking at the process of coming out, the process of emerging from the cocoon as a butterfly. Maybe it's a little overused, but I really do like that analogy. Feeling in some way different, maybe not ugly, but not fitting in, then experiencing that transformation, not necessarily physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and emerging as something, or rather someone, who is the same, but different, whole. Again, I was still concerned with being accepted by others, and we are going to talk about coming out in another episode because that is a topic all of its own. As I was preparing to record this episode on acceptance and going through this process of recognizing what acceptance was and why this day was so important to me, a year later, so now, March 8th, 2023, I finally realized that on March 8th, 2022, I didn't just accept me as me. I stopped actively rejecting me. So just as darkness is the absence of light, acceptance is the absence of rejection. So today, March 8th, International Women's Day, it is forever going to hold a very special place in my heart. As I get ready to end this episode, I want to remind us all about what I said at the beginning. When we think about acceptance and being accepted, our focus is on or about others accepting us for who we are, our strengths, our weaknesses, our abilities, our differences. What we forget is that we have to accept ourselves first. And that may also mean realizing that you are actively rejecting yourself or rejecting someone that you love. Until then, being accepted by others just still leaves a big void that no one else can fill but you. Accept you. Love you. Be proud of you. Respect you. And so thank you so much for being here with me today. This is such a personal topic. Every one of them, I think, in this journey of discovery, the journey to your authentic self, there is not a day that goes by that there isn't some new way of looking at something. So thank you for being here with me today. I hope that you found this interesting, thought-provoking, and I hope you enjoy. If you have not listened to the other podcast episodes, please go listen to them. Please subscribe, and until next time, have a joyous and blessed day.